Hello, this is Anna Imagination with a Healing Garden. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives, Triadic Healing. We are going to talk about your emotions being weaponized against you. This is easily one of the primary things that occurs during abuse. In fact, this is the thing that occurs during abuse. You have your emotions. The primary emotion is love. That is the core emotion, and it is the one that is targeted the most. And when you have an abuser, all abusers are narcissists. When you have, is that true? It's kind of like one of those things where all narcissists are abusers, but not all abusers are narcissists. And we all have narcissism inside of us. It's a spectrum. We all have it. It's not like, it's like we have this pre-wired thing inside of us. It's basically our yeah, we all have narcissism inside of us. And this is why you end up with vulnerable narcissists or grandiose, is because a vulnerable narcissist is somebody who is submissive, who is an avoider. And when you have an avoidant who goes to narcissism, they become a vulnerable narcissist. But if you have somebody who is a controller, and the controller is somebody who has to take control. And okay. So we'll just break this down. All right. So you have control. There's authority, power, control, and control is the ability to responsibly use your authority and your power. But if you are not using authority and power properly, then you instead focus on control rather than authority and power. So there is the authority, power, control is an amazing, gorgeous little thing. And I talk about this later, but here's like a little summary of it. Your authority is your ability to establish and put down your boundaries. Your power is the force in which you enforce your authority. So your authority is your boundary saying, no, you don't get to sit there and abuse me. That's your authority. Your power is how well you use your authority to say, back the fuck off. I said, no, you're not going to listen. Now we're going to enforce. That's power. Control is what occurs after you use authority and power. But most of us don't. Instead, we take control or we feel control. If you take control, you are a controller, as me. These are people who are doers. These are people who take action. These are people who over control because they can't handle it. They got to get hands on and do. And then you have people who feel control. These are your avoiders. These are people who don't like conflicts. These are people who seek out addiction. Now, there are two kinds of addiction. There is the avoidant kind of addiction to help you escape. That's what avoiders are known for. Or you have people who are doers and they develop addictions based on their taking action. So they are the doers. This is where someone who gambles or shops would fall into the taking control area. And people who like to feel in control, who seek to feel control, they turn to alcohol, they turn to drugs, they turn to food for comfort, food and eating disorders, and that kind of stuff. The person who feels control, the avoider, never learned self-comfort. That is their primary problem, is they struggle with self-comfort. The person who is a doer, who seeks to take control, they struggle with, I believe they struggle with resourcefulness. They might struggle with, I have to analyze that a little bit more. I have to dig into that. But that being said, when you are focused on control, you are actually not taking authority and you are not exercising your power. And that's the problem. So your authority and your power is neglected. That's your boundary setting in your communications. You're not practicing self comfort. You're not utilizing your authority and your power. And as a result, you're just focused on control. So now you either project your control onto other people, and that is what doers do. They are projectors. Or you internalize it, and that's what avoiders do. They internalize the control. So they withdraw and they avoid and they seek to escape. Now, everything's on a spectrum except this. I have yet to see an example where this is not black and white. I've been looking. This is something where I'm like, yeah, this is something I've been looking for. Now, yeah, I can't find a black and or a gray example of this. I am a solid doer. I am an anxious attachment style back when I was, yeah, I was an anxious attachment. If you are an avoidant attachment style, it's because you were feeling in control. You were an avoider and you were going that direction. It's your relationship to control determines this. To fix this, you need to establish authority and power. It doesn't matter which kind of a person you are, you need to establish authority and power. And if you're not, you're going to proceed to feel in control or take control. A narcissist takes control, an empath feels in control. So, if you fall into the beautiful category of disorganized, and this is where I'm thinking they both merge together, is if you are borderline personality disorder and you're both. And that's your disorganized attachment style because you do both. You take control and you also are an avoider. You're both. That's where you're get away from me. I'm dangerous. I need to protect you. Please don't leave me. Stay with me. Oh, you need to go away. I'm not good for you. Please, that's your disorganized, and that is where they toggle both sides of it. And like I said, this is where I'm not seeing a spectrum. I'm seeing avoider, anxious, disorganized, and it's very cut dry categorized. Still looking for examples of spectrum, but so far what I'm seeing with observations is it falls into this. So, when you understand that you have this kind of a relationship with control, it opens up an entirely different kind of creature. Overwhelm is an emotion that is very common for the avoider, while I, as a controller, never feel overwhelmed. I have no idea what the emotion feels like. I had to sit down and interview my partner and my daughter about the feeling of overwhelm because I've never felt it. I don't feel overwhelmed at all. It's an emotion that's very interesting to me because I'm a controller. I don't feel that emotion, but my daughter runs on it. My partner runs on it. Anxiety is common for the avoider, and yeah, it's really interesting. This is like a topic that really fascinates me when I get into it. So getting back into it, when you're looking at your emotions being weaponized against you. So the first emotion is love. And that is the first emotion that abusers use against you. In fact, it's the only emotion that's used against you for quite a while. Don't you love me? If you loved me, you would. So when you go into a situation, we're going to talk about this. This is something that's huge. So I talk in my other videos about the relativity. You have your identity and you have your relativity. I talk a lot about that. Go back and watch my videos. And you have and the video you want to look for, by the way, because this is really important if you do want to go back on this and you want to be like, which video is it you're referring to? Because this is really relevant. This is like part 2 of this. I might even link it. Is the other perspective? Mm-mm. Which one is it? Let me see here. This is really fucking important, or I wouldn't be like, it's not chasing perspectives. Maybe it's that one. Reported to the perspective war between the self. That might be it. You know what? I'm going to find it afterwards, and I'm just going to link it below. So take a look at it below. I need to find it because this is so fucking important. It's all relevant. So here's how it works. You have your identity and you have your relative. Oh, I remember which one it is. Oh my God. How it is the video that is pinned to like my homepage. It is the trauma grief. Trauma grief is the video. So go and watch Trauma Grief. It is the pinned video in my channel, Trauma Grief. And that breaks down your identity and your relativity. That's the one you need to watch for this to make sense. So I'm going to go back and recap a little bit, but watch the video Trauma Grief. Here's how it works. You have your identity, you have your relativity. This is very much a which came first, the chicken or the egg. And identity did not come first, relativity came first. We all start with our relatives. We are nothing, we are nobody without our relatives defining us. Now, we hopefully have really solid, healthy parents, right? And they, because they are our relative, are giving us a definition of love. So we are now creating our entire identity under this concept of what love is. Now, this is where a lot of parents are good with showing us love for the first 2 years of our life, which is good. So we have something solid to stabilize us. And we have like 2 years of really awesome happiness when we're really cute and people are like, oh, look at the baby. And we're just like, yeah, life is awesome. And then 3-year-old hit, 3 and 4 hits. And that's when that adorableness turns into abuse because suddenly we're not easy and cute. It's when we start losing our cuteness that people start to hate us. And that's when they start to change us because we're not cute anymore. It's like our saving grace is that we're cute when we're babies. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are abused horribly right at the beginning, 6 months old. Those are the people who grow up without any love. This is really fucking horrible, but this is true. There are people, think about Matilda. Not John, what is your name? Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl. Yeah, the author Roald Dahl. Matilda, that is a girl who was raised without any love. Now, she's a fluke. It does exist. Harry Potter is another great example of this. Harry Potter was raised without love. And again, he's a fluke. I was married to somebody who had the Matilda Harry Potter treatment and then some. And I got to see what a person looks like when they are raised without love. And holy fucking hell. Holy fucking hell. So Matilda and Harry Potter are flukes. They're also fictions, but they're flukes. So that being said, those situations is what happens, what it looks like when a child is raised at as early as in infancy without any love. So now you are developing their beautiful identity based off of no love. And as a result, the core identity of who you are is compromised because now their relativity of understanding identity in life is being compared to how they are defined by love based off of their relativity, based off of how their relatives react to them. And again, because most of us are cute, because babies are cute, it is our saving grace. So the first 2 years of our life, everyone loves us. We are experiencing unconditional love in the first 2 years of our lives. In the case of many narcissists, they don't. If you have a grandiose narcissist who's downright abusive and they are really messed up, then you're going to end up with a child who's born in a a lifestyle where there's no love. And from the time you are 3 months, 6 months old, you are abused. That is common. So now you have your identity that is steeped not in love, but in hate, in narcissism. Narcissism literally becomes your definition of love. I'm going to say that again. It's really disgusting, but narcissism becomes your definition of love. Okay, yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, that's a real slap in the face. So there's a lot of us out there who never had that relativity of love to define the identity, which is what's supposed to happen. Instead, it's narcissism that defines love. Being needed. It's your relationship to need, being used, being used. The word need actually means to use. Look it up. It's pretty ugly. So when you have somebody who says, I need you, what they're really saying is, I need to use you. And there's like a whole preposition there that they've cut off that they're not saying, but it's implied. And when you really dig down into the psychology of the words, being needed means I need to use you. And somebody who defines love, this is, by the way, codependency. This is 100% codependency, the narcissism, the empath cycle. I have so many videos on just this topic. And this is it right here. This is the ugly truth. Is a lot of people, codependents, people who are empaths, are raised believing that love equals being needed, which means I need someone to use me. Please use me. And now you've got empaths who are seeking out people who need them based off of their relationship and definition of love. And this is all because when they are born, love is used as a weapon against them. Why would you do that? Don't you love your mother? We hear that one a lot. Well, if you really loved me, I can't believe you would do this to your mother. We hear that one so much. Like, that is such an abusive terminology that so many people grow up hearing. And what's really being done and said in that kind of a sentence is love equals being needed, being used, and allowing people to use you. So now we are associating acceptance, visibility, importance, value, all of these things with how much can someone use me, literally. And now we seek out that kind of definition because that is the definition that was embedded inside of us. So this is where it all starts, is love. And then later on, we get other emotions added into it. We get fear added into it. This is where we get domesticated terrorism. I love using that word because it's ugly and it's honest. And it is what it is. When you have a father, every time you hear, wait till your father gets home, that's domesticated terrorism. And then you are sitting in your room for hours, terrified of that moment when your father gets home and he beats the fuck out of you. Domesticated terrorism. It was very popular in the 80s. So we have this distorted concept of what love is based off of narcissism. And then we're steeped in fear with domesticated terrorism, behave or else. And then there's the guilt factor of eat your vegetables. You know, there are people who are starving in Africa. Do you hear how we parented our people? Like, this is true parenting. And when you start to really break down the psychology of the garbage that parents give their children, it is a whole nother level of psychological abuse. So you have the guilt, you have the fear being used against you. And this is conditioned into you from the time you're 2 years old, around the time you stop being cute and when your poop starts to smell. So as a result, you have parents who start to turn on you because they don't love you unconditionally. That is their bullshit lie. They love you very conditionally, and the conditions are laid out very clearly in black and white for the first 5 years of your life. Oh, you don't like my rules? You can find another place to live. This is my house. These are my rules. These colloquialisms that our parents feed us, I just need to do parenting classes. I really just need to get in there and do parenting classes and just teach people to unlearn all the garbage that the parents taught them. I'm going to be doing this, by the way. I absolutely will be. Like, this is my goal, is getting to parenting classes. So what you end up having is this fear, this domesticated violence. You have the or else, you have the guilt, you have the love, and it's all being compromised. So by the time you get to 5, you've got all of these emotions that are absolutely weaponized against you and turned on you. And what ends up happening when you walk away from all of that is basically this hatred for your emotions, because you associate such horrific things with your emotions. And emotions suddenly become basically weapons. So you associate having a feeling with being hurt because they've been weaponized against you. So now you're put in this position where you reject your emotions because emotions equal pain. And the pain is the cognitive dissonance, the emotion that shows you, that teaches you, that makes you feel that inconsistency of they're supposed to love me, but they don't. They're supposed to love me, but this doesn't make sense. And then when you go out of your way, when you're a teenager, when you're older, and you find things that you actually do love, you end up with 2 different definitions of love. The feeling that you have when you think about things you actually love versus the feeling that you have when you think about people who you just want to please or you want to have approval from. And it's a completely different kind of love. There are 2 definitions of loves. Now, one of those definitions is being in love in the sense of it is coming from a place of love. This is the feeling you get for your cat. This is the feeling you have for your objects and your possessions and your material objects, which is a good thing. The flip side of that is what I call loving in fear. And that is when you have fear-based love, which actually is not love at all. It is fear that uses fear to disguise itself as love because you have a distorted sense of what love is. And it all goes back to how your parents interacted with you when you were a child, when you were in your first 2 to 3 years of your life. Absolutely dire, absolutely vital to how you perceive emotions. So what's ended up happening is now when you decide to do trauma healing, when you get to the final, all right, I'm miserable, I want to change my life, I want to put it around, I want to go and pursue this stuff. Now you have to go back to your emotions. Now we already have this association of emotion equals pain. So we reject the emotion. And this is where we become this, you got to basically accept the thing that you think is causing you pain. But it is not the emotions that's causing you pain. It's the cognitive dissonance that's causing you pain. And the cognitive dissonance is the inconsistent beliefs that you have embedded inside of you. So, with all of that being said, when you flip it around, what you're really looking at is coming to terms with this massive part of you and understanding what your emotions are. Your emotions have a purpose. Your emotions are required. They are part of you. Your emotions are highly logical. Your emotions are the check engine lights of your subconscious mind to tell you, hey, you're being abused and you need to do something about it. And instead of you using these beautiful tools to logically keep yourself safe, instead, we've been conditioned to throw them away because they hurt so much because they've been used against you. So now you don't want to give anyone your emotions because every time you give someone your emotions, they hurt you because you're an empath, because you have this radar going off where you are looking for people who need you. So you subconsciously attract people who are narcissists so you can feel and pursue love. And that's really what we're doing. We're all pursuing love, but most of us don't understand what love actually is. And that's really it because we associate love with need. And that's the problem. So many of us are throwing the concept of need out there. We're going, oh, I need this person. I love you, so I need you. No, love is not need. Love is want. And want is far more powerful than a need. Need is fear-based. Want is love-based. A lot of people are sitting there going, a need is something you require to live. Wants are also things that you require to live. Because in wanting something, you are defining the self. And if you refuse, reject, or refuse to accept your wants, you're actually defining and rejecting, you are rejecting a part of the defined self. And as a result, you're taking a little bit away from yourself. Whenever you want something, if you want to go to Paris, if you want to go to a certain location, if you want a certain job, if you want a certain someone, well, let's not use someone because now we're getting into emotional prosthetics. If you want a certain cat, you have this thing inside of you because it defines who you are. It's actually a pursuit of the identity. That's what wants are. Wants are a pursuit of your identity. Wants are the most valuable things in the world. Wants are more powerful than needs. Needs in most cases are fear-based. Because when you need something, it's I require this to feel safe. And that's really it. Need equals safety. But love equals identity. It requires defined self. So really, when you look at the difference between love, need, and want, you're comparing your safety versus your defined self. And there's this really perverted concept that we don't need to define the self. So we throw it away. And as a result, your mental health suffers. And it's really down to your security, your safety, and your defined self. Wants and needs are equal in importance. They are vital. The problem is when you have love, which is supposed to be about the defined self, it's instead transferred over to the security department in your brain, the fear system. And that's the problem. And it's all fucked up because your parents gave you a wrong definition of fear at the end. They gave you the wrong definition of love. They told you what love was, and they based that definition off of fear. So to correct this, you need to cut off your relativity because your relativity is wrong. That's really it. If your relativity, we're back to the identity and the relativity. If your relativity is defined by love equals fear, and that's going to be what you base it off of, you're going to have a wrong definition of identity because now your identity in comparison to fear is going to define everything that you are. And that's going to throw you off because that's not what the identity is. The identity is love-based. And in order to have a love-based identity, which is correct and which is what you need, you require a new definition of relativity. So the relativity has to be defined in love, actual love, based off of what you want. You need a new definition of relativity. And in most cases, toxic parents are not it. So as a result, you're scrambling, looking for a solid, stable anchor, which should be your relatives, but it's not because your relatives are the ones who abused you. So you need to start by getting a defined sense of relativity so you can start building your identity off of that relativity. Hence the healing garden. Hence a therapist. That's actually what a therapist is the therapist steps in and provides you with relativity. And it's a wonderful relationship when you find a therapist that actually resonates with you and is on par with you. You can feel it where, oh, this is the point of correctness. This is the point of basis. It's because you have now a relativity. And as you develop your identity and you strengthen and you heal, you have the therapist who's serving as that relativity for you. Now you have a point of status. It gets to a point where we start to lean toward the advice and the opinion of our therapist more than our parents, more than our partner, more than anybody else, because the therapist is providing a solid point of relativity for you, an anchoring ground point with correct perspective. That's why we seek out therapy. We are seeking the correct perspective. And the ones that we've had prior to that point are inaccurate, aren't valid, are incorrect. So we find one that is correct. You want a relative point that is steeped in accuracy, steeped in understanding, steeped in this massive comprehension of here is your starting point, here is your relativity. This is what love is. This is your archetype. Now, based off of that archetype, who are you? Compare you to the archetype. Oh, we love this in philosophy. Philosophy is huge on the archetype. Everything about philosophy is the archetype. There's like a whole chapter just on the archetype. And that archetype is the definition of who we are and what we're supposed to be. Perspective twos love to use Jesus Christ for this model, which is fine so long as you keep in check your own autonomy. And that's the problem with perspective two, is they think that Christ becomes the be all end all, and they completely throw away and devalue the identity, which is the problem with religion. That's not healthy. That's what got you into the problem to begin with, is your lack of autonomy, your lack of authority. And that's the problem. You're not supposed to use your archetype. You're not supposed to use your relative as a point of be all end all authority. You're supposed to take the authority back. And you're supposed to have an archetype that is so solid in their relativity to you and secure that they don't need to hoard your authority from you. They actually give it to you and teach you how to use your authority. By the way, reminder, authority is just your ability to set a boundary and enforce it with power. That's all it is. But you require a relative, an archetype, who absolutely is secure enough in you having your authority and power. Your parents take away your authority and your power and your ability to use boundaries because they're threatened by it. So they hoard it because they're insecure. That's not a good archetype. So now you're over here completely without authority, completely without power, and you're absolutely put into this hierarchical position of submissive dog. And your archetype is going, oh, love means serving me and being obedient and submissive to me. That's love because I need you. I need to serve. I need to use you. And that's where your definition is. And that's why you're miserable. So when you find a therapist, the therapist restores your authority, should restore your authority, restore your power, give you a solid definition of what love is, what love looks like, gives you unconditional love, unconditional belonging, unconditional living, so that when you try and figure out your perspective, your identity is here and you now understand your starting point in your relationship to that centerpiece. Welcome to philosophy. This is it. So when you're choosing a psychologist, when you're choosing a philosopher, when you're choosing a psychologist, this is what you should be looking for. How is their definition of love? How is their definition of psychology? How is their definition of relativity? How is their relationship with authority, power, and control? How is their understanding of the subconscious mind? These are the questions you need to ask. And yes, I do take consultations. And yes, I do the DIY triadic healing. That's exactly what this is. And yes, I have an integration workshop. So you need to make sure that your therapist slash psychologist absolutely has these standards in place so that you can make them a solid archetype during your healing process, because the one you have is the one that fucked you up. It's the one that fucked us all up. You're not actually fucked up. Your relativity is wrong because that's the one you were given at birth. We put way too much of an importance on our parents. And these are the people who absolutely use your emotions against you with guilt, with fear, with control manipulation, with love. Those are the three emotions that they compromise. They compromise love, they compromise fear, and they compromise guilt. Those are the three emotions that are used against you in warfare, perspective warfare. And as a result, because they changed the definition of love, because they changed the definition of fear, or because they use fear in domesticated terrorism, and then they use guilt as a means and methods to demean you and control you and embed their own position inside of you so that they hijack your subconscious mind, of course you're not okay because they've done this to you. So as far as how to get over this is you need to redefine 7 Habits for Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Excellent book. He talks about a lot of this. 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. Start there. Oh my God. I have a reading list in my syllabus on my website. Get started if you go through Triadic Healing. And the books that I recommend are solid in restoring this to you. The love, the fear, the guilt. I'm also going to be writing a book on the Subconscious Mind's User Guide. So you have the Age of Authenticity's User Guide to the Subconscious Mind, which will put all of this in order. But the love, the fear, the guilt are the 3 primary ones. And it all starts with love. Love is the primary one. Now, love is not an actual emotion. It's a state of being, which is the problem. Is your state of being, your entire solid foundation has been ill-defined because they've used it against you. So love, fear, guilt. And I have emotional management classes located in my integration workshop. I have on my website, I have an article that I'm writing on emotions, where I break down emotions and all that, what they're for and how to use them properly. The more educated you become on your emotions, the more this is all going to fall into place. So the next video I have that I'm doing this morning is called, I don't remember what it's called. It's called Your Secret Weapon, the Defense System. And this is literally like the next part of this, where we get into emotions, we get into boundaries and communications, because that is really, really how all of this now is going to turn itself around and going to put you in a position of authority and power, because this is really what this is about, is your authority and your power, and you stepping in a very BDSM kind of a mindset with your shadow self saying, no, I'm not going to participate in your hierarchy anymore. My perspective is as important as yours, and I'm taking it back. And that's all it is we're talking perspective warfare. So once you get into this, where you start fighting back for your perspective, there's a process to it. And we're going to walk you through it. That's what Triadic Healing does. It walks you through it, and it gets you to a point where you understand this is the big picture of what's really going on. This is how to fight for it. This is what needs to be done. And this is what you can expect. And this is how to overcome all of the problems as you go through it. And it's just a matter of learning the skills and practicing them and getting better at them. That's all it is. This is such a learnable thing. It's easy. It really is easy, because it's just a matter of perspective. It is just a matter of understanding. So once you get the skill set, it's a matter of utilizing them, practicing them to the point of mastery. And you will master it once you understand what you're dealing with. And right now, most of you come in here and no one has any idea what this stuff is. So it's getting you this information, getting you on the same page so you have the information, and then it's skill setting. These are the skills you're going to need. Now let's practice them and let's master them, and here's how. So the next video I'm going to do is going to now introduce you to what skills you need and how to practice them. All the videos up to now has been preparing you for this point. So now we're going to get you the skills, and we're going to start working with you on practicing and execution. And then it's just a matter of basically rinse and repeat and getting better at them. And that's where, if you're not signed up for it yet, my integration workshop is really going to walk you through that. That's really helpful. It's Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Night every Thursday, where I sit down and I do a full 3-hour workshop. It's everything. It's everything you need to encompass all of this. That way you integrate what it is you're learning in these videos. The information is below. If you love this, if you love shit like this, like, subscribe, follow, comment below, share if there's somebody you know who can use this information. Comment below. Let me know what part of the show resonated with you. Donate to the garden. Help us grow. And then if you are interested in enrolling in Triadic Healing, there's DIY Triadic Healing, and that's available at Getting Started on my website. Take a look at the link below. And then there is the integration workshop, Journey into the Self, which is literally a full group, hands-on, every Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I do one-on-one consultations, which is also available below. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.